another feature in which DayCaptain really shines is handling time zones. Why? Well, originally because I used to travel a lot and I needed a tool that displays and handles the time zones how I need it to be. So I really changed my time zone quite often a few years ago. And that's why that's a somewhat special feature in DayCaptain what you can use. What I don't quite understand is that most calendars actually display the time zones based on your current time zone in which you're currently located right now, which might not make sense if you actually want to plan ahead for example, a working trip. So let's try this out in Google Calendar and let's see, for example, if I were to travel to, let's say, New York. I'm usually based in Europe and I want to have a lunch in New York, and assuming that happens at a certain time, of course around like 12, maybe until 1, and that will happen in a specific time zone. So I have to select a time zone somewhere here, New York, and that will happen then. Okay, what you already can see that actually this is now displayed, well, of course incorrectly, because right now I'm located in a European time zone, and then it will say, well, based on that, it will be 6 p.m. But if now a colleague would ask me, hey, are you free when you're gonna be in New York? Are you free at 2 p.m. to meet for a coffee? Now you would need to calculate to say, okay, wait a second, 2 p.m. What is that gonna be in this time zone that my calendar currently shows in order to tell you whether I'm free or not? So I think this doesn't really make sense if we travel and switch our time zone quite often. So for displaying reasons in DayCaptain, I think it makes more sense to show you the local time in which you will be in, like your time zone that you're gonna be in. For that reason, for example, if we say, well, we also would like to schedule the same lunch here in New York and say that's gonna happen, well, actually not in Berlin time zone, but in New York time zone. So from also 12 to 1, we can schedule this here, and you see that although this is going to be a different time zone, it's displayed correctly in your local time. And then if somebody asks you, hey, are you free at 2, you can have a look at your timeline and you can say, yes, I will be. Okay, so how does this work? You can select a time zone like as you wish, one that actually matches the event, and you can also use this feature of time zone switches. How does this work? This is actually aware of kind of like the time zone spans that you have once you put in the original time zone crossing event in. So for example, if I say I will fly to JFK on that Monday, and that takes from, let's say, 12:30 to usually something like 3:45. But this is now a time zone switch. If I hit T, you see this expansion here. I can type and search quite quickly. I will go to New York, and then if I put this in, first of all, what we see that the length in the timeline that is displayed is somewhat, well, the length if we would calculate all the local time zone switches in, so it's either like prolonged or compressed together, but the connection, the calculation of the length of the event is of course still correct. So if I would say, well, I have a flight here and for some reason I want to connect this with a task just to display the time, it will still show me the correct duration, including, well, all the time zone switches and of course based on the actual time. All right, but what this also does now, it shows me that this is actually a time zone switch, and then it will just adapt all the other events that I have. So the lunch in New York is still at 12, but now my weekly meeting, which was supposed to be at 9 European time, now shows me that this will be at night, which of course I'm not going to make it, but then it also takes this into account. So it will just recalculate what this is going to be in your local time zone. So this is why these switches are being taken into account. But nevertheless, you can display these local times in your time zone as you will expect them, as you will experience them, which I think makes just much more sense once we travel a lot. And if we put in these time zone switches and then DayCaptain recalculates the events near it and just make sure that you will have a proper experience of seeing your times, what actually makes sense from your perspective. So this is how you use these time zones in DayCaptain. You can have a look at the keyboard hints. It shows you to press T to switch and select the time zones, and then the rest that is still as expected. I hope that is helpful, and have fun switching your time zones.